Hey everybody, welcome to Let's Make a Model Dark Angels 2.0 Super Combo Edition Part 2. Now, in my Let's Make a Model series, I never actually really do anything on camera because I don't have the proper setup to do that in a manner where I won't get all up in the way. But I do say in the video I'm going to do this, and then in the next part I show you the model with that part done to it, whatever I said I was going to do. I talk about that a little bit, and then I talk about the next step. So that's how it works here. With that being said, somebody pointed out that these bases may be Dark Art Mini bases, and that's a possibility. I do. Wow, that was a weird accent. I do, no, but I do have that web page in my bookmarks because I was looking for Urban Rebel bases. Their current range don't have any bases that match these, as in being the exact same thing, which is what you would expect. But it's a possibility that they updated their range recently, so who knows? I'm going to tentatively say it's Dark Art Mini bases, but I'm still going to look around a little bit. So thanks for pointing that out. Alrighty. So the whole super combo aspect of this thing is the fact that we're working with resin and we're going to be doing assembly line style painting. So first off, working with resin, it's a lot of prep time really with resin. And if you have fine cast models, I've built a couple of fine cast models and I'm working on them, and I've worked on a couple. The main thing to realize with fine cast is it's basically what I call a resin hybrid. And everything you have to do with resin, you should do to fine cast and you'll be just fine. Now, the first thing I do with resin is prep it. Just as with any media for a model, you gotta prep it. But resin has a little bit more to it, or can, because part of the course for resin is minor defects in the casting process. You're gonna have flash, almost always. You're gonna have tabs, almost always. And you're gonna have to clip those off and file them down a bit and get the part to look like what it's supposed to look like. And you've seen some flash here and there and some tab examples in part 1. Other things which I did not have any problems with here is real gaps when you assemble your models. You may notice an obvious visible gap, which you would have to clean up with some green stuff or some glue or some liquid green stuff. Air bubbles, which can take the form of minor dimples on a surface, or an actual, looks like a hole in the model a bit. That's an air bubble. Again, green stuff can fill it in, some glue can fill that in. I didn't have any of those problems. Another issue you may have is the part may come in slightly bent, in which case you got to heat up the resin and get it hot so you can make it go from being curved like this, like my hand is, to straight on. Don't use an open flame, don't use an oven. Hot water, really hot water, and leaving it leaving it in just a resin piece in your car on a hot summer day for a little bit, for a couple hours, can do the trick as well. But an open flame or an oven will just damage it. And release agent, of course. That's why you gotta scrub it down with a mild detergent to get the release agent off. Trust me, you want to do this. It's gonna make painting a lot easier. So once you do all that, then it comes time for assembly. And assembly is really the first step for assembly line painting. I know it's really for painting, but you gotta keep in mind, sometimes you may assemble models a certain way that is great, but it may make it a bit harder to paint or get to certain details, or just a bit more time consuming. And part of the reason your assembly line painting is for efficiency and an increase in your speed. So you don't want things bogging you down. So I always assemble like this anyway, and this works well for me. It's partial assembly. I have the bolter, which I put the melee attachment on just because. The backpack and the arms separate. The shoulder pads are attached to the arms already, and I have the body, legs, and head attached to as one piece. Their final bases are kept separate. I put them on temporary painting bases. And regardless whether you do that or not, it's a good example to get something like this. I only have one so far. It's a cork with some blue tack in the base on it. Makes it very good for holding it. I'm left-handed, so I can manipulate it no problem, not have my hand get in the way. So that's the first step for assembly line painting, is getting the models assembled to a point where you can work on them efficiently. One thing I want to point out when you start painting, bases are important to do. I like to do them first. But with resin cast bases, you're going to have more detail than you would normally put on your own bases. I like to put some detail when I make up my own bases. I use spackling paste, modeling sand, bits, but these have parts sticking out, and just like a skull thing here, a pipe, just detail on here that you, in general, don't normally see on a regular base that you make. And let's see if we get the camera back. There we go. And with that, you don't want to go too crazy with the bases in terms of painting. You can't, well, you shouldn't just do your normal 3-layer dry brush or so on a base and be done with it. You, you have to pick out the pipe work and pick out the skull, pick out the brick work a bit here and there. But the fancier you get on your base, the fancier your model has to be, because you don't want the base competing with your model for attention. At least that's my philosophy of having bases on a model. It should be there to complement and complete the look, but not detract from your guy at all on the base. So with that being said, the first step that you have to do obviously is base coating. That's usually the very first step for any type of painting process, even assembly line painting. And you can do with an airbrush, with a spray can, or just use a paintbrush and paint. I'm going to use a paintbrush. I'm going to use black paint as a base coat because I always base coat vinyls black, and with Urban Rubber bases I base coat them black as well. Now because I like to do bases first, that's what I'm going to do here. So in the next step, well, in this step for part 2, I'm going to also not just base coat them black, but also do an Adeptus Battle Gray heavy dry brush as a first dry brush layer for the dry brushes that I'm going to do. I'm going to do that first, which is a dark gray if you don't have that, a nice dark gray. And then that's it. So when I come back in part 3, you're going to see these guys base coated black, and the bases having their first dry brush coat down. And I'm going to take you through all the steps I normally do for the bases, then finish the bases, and then move on to the models themselves. So that's really it. Thanks for sticking through it. And next time you see these guys, there'll be some paint on them. And remember, this is assembly line painting. Have a plan. This is my plan. I already have it planned out what I'm going to do in terms of bases first, and then I'll start working on the models. But if you're going to do models first, have a plan. I'll get into that once the bases are done. Because if you're looking at an assembly line in like a plant that pumps out cars, whatever they're pumping out in an assembly line fashion, everything happens step A, B, C, D. They don't do B after D, for example. They do it in the proper order, and that's important to do. It's going to keep you efficient and keep you chugging along and making good progress. Anyways, that's it. So until next time, take it easy.